Victor was on the orphan train, but he was not an orphan.
Mother and Father's ship had not sunk to the bottom of the ocean. They would return any day now, and it wasn't right that the loathsome Quartz had sold his house and thrown him onto a blue train full of pitiful orphans traveling west. But no one, not the caregiver from the Children's Aid Society, nor the conductor, nor any of the other children, would listen to him.
He needed to go home.
In the countryside, the train stopped at every station to conduct adoptions. Victor scowled and spit and even kicked his way through these interviews. I forgot his face. He refused to live on a dirty farm where he'd be expected to perform chores to do with cows and crops. He didn't know what those chores might be. He only knew that he missed dinners with his family and good food like steak and buttery mashed potatoes. The food on the train was abysmal. The tea was bitter.
There was steam everywhere. It was so loud. And blah, 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 blah. May we please take a moment outside of young Victor's head to relax and think peaceful thoughts. Victor had earned the reputation as a fractious child, so much so that at the end of the line he was the only unclaimed child left on the train. Even ugly Winnie had been adopted. Finally, he said, "Take me home."
You don't have a home, the caregiver said. Yes, I do. It's in town, and you will take me there now. This is the end of the line, isn't it? This is not the end of the line, only the last of the orphan stations. The train is now taking coal all the way to the coast. What coast? The West Coast. Why are you going there? Because I have a job waiting there that has nothing to do with ill-behaved children. Now sit down.
Victor frowned. What was going to happen to him? Overcome with fear and rage, he called the caregiver two of the three very bad words he knew, an adjective and a noun. She gasped, her face flushing red. "Is that so?" she said. "Well, why don't you just deboard and take the next train going east?" Victor's eyes lit up with hope.
The caregiver didn't know sarcasm was lost on Victor. It always had been. She also didn't see him pick up his small suitcase and an apple and deboard the train. She didn't know he watched the blue train leave the station. She only realized he was missing hours later. The train was stopped and thoroughly searched. With dawning horror, she realized what must have happened. Frantic, she ordered the conductor and the engineer to return to the last orphan station. After much persuasive screaming, they relented, running the train backwards at top speed, a lantern swinging from the caboose. It was safe. No other train would run these tracks for 24 hours.
Meanwhile, Victor was growing more cross by the moment.
He looked at his pocket watch. It had been hours and hours, and no train was coming. The depot was locked up tight, and there was no town in sight. The sun was setting, and he was cold. And that apple hadn't been enough, so he was hungry and thirsty too. And he missed his parents. He screamed the other very bad word he knew, a verb. But no one heard him. Then he cried.
"I'm not an orphan," Victor whispered. He looked at his pocket watch again, not to check the time, but to stare at the painted images of his mother and father on the inside of the case.
Then, to take his mind off his troubles, he stepped onto the railroad tracks and hopped from cross-tie to cross-tie like a rabbit. 1, 2, 3, 4.
When he reached 251, the tracks began to vibrate. Victor heard the sound of steam hissing and a shrill whistle. Finally, he saw the train in the dim twilight. Why wasn't its bright light on? He waved with both hands before wisely stepping off the tracks. It was then that he saw his pocket watch, balanced on one rail, gleaming faintly, its chain caught around a spike. If he didn't save it, if his parents had perished in that sinking ship, that locket was all he had to remember them. There was still time to save it. Unwisely, Victor walked back onto the tracks. The end. Victor, why'd you get squished under the train? That pocket watch was not worth your life. You did not have enough time. Don't ever run back on the train tracks. That's a dumb thing to do. Just dumb. Okay, so tomorrow is W. Winnie. But before we move on to that, do you have any ideas, any stories about why you think, I'm going to call him Vincent, why Victor got squashed under a train? I'd like to know. Put them in the comments. And I am Rachel of Rachel Gets Creative. Rachel Gets Creative. Yeah, I do. And I want to say thank you for watching. I appreciate it very, very much. And I will see you tomorrow. Love you. Bye.